NCAA Football 14 continues to be a game that absolutely blows my mind, thanks to the contributions of a great community behind the game. And while EA will be making a college football game soon, it seems, possibly releasing in 2023, that game may still not live up to what NCAA Football 14 is if the recent Maddens are anything to show of a track record of what EA has been able to put out as far as single player, especially this dynasty-based content that people have come to expect from college football games. Now, I've talked a lot on this channel in the past about NCAA Football 14's College Football Revamped mod, which is really a total overhaul of the game. I mean, it adds plays, updates the roster, obviously, which we've been able to do for some time, changes a lot of the in-game graphics, and changes some of the AI tendencies to really make the game play much better and overall look a lot more modernized while not actually improving the graphics. And because PS3 emulation has came so far in the past, say, 5 years, it's very playable on PC. And while I don't have a PC that's strong enough to play PS3 games, those that do have really enjoyed having the game available on that platform. Instead, I just elect to play the game on a modded PlayStation 3, and you can do the same on Xbox 360. Development on College Football Revamped is ongoing. However, I would say that at the tail end of 2021, the thing really did reach this big milestone, a sort of completion point, where all the teams in the game had been redone or replaced. Because, of course, there are some new teams in this that were not in the original release, but they all have their new updated uniforms and whatnot, and are fully modernized. And it took like 16, 17 versions of College Football Revamped before each and every team was modernized. And of course, college football games, there are just a ton of teams in them. This isn't a simple 32 teams like you'd have in an NFL game. And it really did take a lot of time, and it's amazing to see the amount of content they have there. But you can take the experience a step further with two tools that I recently found out about that admittedly have been out for a little while and have continued to get updates periodically that really add a lot to the game. And both of these tools do require a save file to be imported to your PC to modify the save file for it to be imported back into the game, which is a little bit of a chore if you're somebody that's playing on console like I am, but if you're somebody that's playing on PC and you're just moving the files around through your emulator, then it's very easy. But regardless, these tools will both work on console and PC. And the first one is the utility tool, which really adds the college football playoffs to the game. Now, the playoffs aren't actually in the game in a sense. They need to be added through the use of this tool, but by importing your postseason file into the tool each and every year, you're able to get access to actually play through a proper playoff experience in NCAA Football 14, which was something that was lacking initially. And honestly, you can actually do this even with the base game without even using College Football Revamped. So it's a really cool tool to be able to introduce that playoff feature, though it is in a bit of a haphazard way, kind of a roundabout way with having to use the computer to do it. The other one that's really neat is Fang's recruitment tool. Now, the recruitment tool gives a, again, more modernized feel to the overall recruitment process in the game by introducing a ton of different players that you typically wouldn't see when recruiting. And you usually don't see the same player twice necessarily when recruiting, but you do see a lot of the same players on the top, and by that I mean their positions being quarterbacks, running backs, more of those skill positions that when the game released were the players that were most frequently getting highly recruited out of high school. But we know now, as we've kind of moved forward and football has progressed, the modern era of football is very reliant on great linemen, both on the defensive and offensive side, and sometimes those offensive and defensive linemen are some of the top recruited players across all of the country. And that's not reflected in the base game, but is reflected in this recruitment tool. So using one preseason dynasty file, you'll be able to generate like 4 to 8 years worth of fresh recruits that are going to get you things that are more representative of today's NCAA football landscape. That even includes players that are rated higher than, say, 79 or 80 overall, which is kind of like the artificial cap, it seems like, for players being recruited as freshmen in this game, because very rarely do you see players go over that 79 or 80 overall, in addition to the fact that most of the athletes, at least at the higher overalls, are very good players that don't get recruited by enough teams, so the athletes are just kind of nerfed as a whole in this tool. Since you can get something like 4 to 8 years worth of recruits out of a single time importing your save file, if you're a console player, this tool makes a lot more sense than the college football playoffs tool because you don't have to necessarily do this every single year. However, there is one aspect of this tool that makes it be a bit worth doing every single year if you're really into the recruitment process. You can take this tool a step further and actually use it every single year, and doing so will get you some more accuracy as far as player names go and their equipment, to my understanding, to try and get it to be more realistic to the current NCAA landscape. It's absolutely awesome to me to see tools like this still being worked on for NCAA Football 14, which arguably may not be the best game in terms of gameplay when you compare it to something like NFL 2K5, 2K8, or even some of the other actual NCAA football games. But because of the massive support this game has had from its dedicated community, the amount of new features that have been thrown onto this game through that fan content has really made this seem like one of the best, if not the best, football game of all time, just because of the depth of single player content here. And it's going to be very hard, I think, for EA to try and match that, even with this tens of millions, maybe hundreds of $1 budget that they're going to throw at bringing back college football, because this really is a game by the fans, for the fans. I think in that way, NCAA Football 14 and College Football Revamped is very special. Thank you guys for watching. I'm Bailey, and I will see you in the next video.